stand right here while you're sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Sir. Watch your step. Make sure the chair is a little bit. Okay.
Would you state your name and spell your last name for us, please?
First name Okorie, O-K-O-R-I-E. Last name Okorocha, O-K-O-R-O-C-H-A.
Thank you.
Make sure this is off. Sir, how are you currently employed?
I'm a forensic toxicologist.
Okay. Can you give, by way of background to the jury, your education, formal education?
I have a bachelor's degree in biology. I have a law degree. I have a master's of science in pharmaceutical sciences with a specialization in forensic science, and I have a second master's degree in forensic toxicology.
And you currently, what does your job encompass currently? What do you do?
The forensic toxicologist reviews the data produced by analytical instruments. In my case, it revolves around blood, breath, hair, saliva, urine testing.
And how long have you been doing that?
18 years.
And did you ever give expert testimony in a courtroom?
Yes.
Approximately how many times have you provided expert testimony?
Over 700 times in 55 of the 58 California counties, 25 times in 25 different U.S. states, and in Germany and Japan.
And were you qualified as an expert in those locations?
Yes.
And did you ever give testimony and qualified as an expert concerning any U.S. military service personnel?
Yes, in Germany and Japan.
And in what setting would have that been?
Court martials.
And what were the allegations?
One of them was that the soldier was impaired while off duty, and his foot was taken off by a train. So in order to get his benefits, we needed to establish that he wasn't in fact impaired. The second one was the Navy one in Japan. That was a breath alcohol test.
And were you qualified as an expert in those cases?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been qualified in blood testing in labs and hospitals to give testimony?
Many times.
In breath testing?
Yes.
In the breath testing involving alcohol?
Correct.
In chemical analysis of blood, have you been declared an expert in that area?
Yes, correct.
Approximately how many times as a chemical analysis of blood have you been qualified in a court as an expert?
I would say over 400.
When it concerns the issue of driving impairment, have you been qualified in courts on that issue?
Yes, I have.
And approximately how many times?
Several hundred.
Have you been qualified in federal court ever?
Oh, yes.
And drug use and effects, have you been qualified in that area in courts?
Yes, prescription drugs, drugs of abuse, over-the-counter drugs, drug interactions.
With regard to field sobriety tests and chemicals that may affect sobriety tests or dexterity tests, have you been qualified in that area that you've given testimony?
Yes, and I have formal education in field sobriety tests.
How long ago would have that been?
2014 or so.
And do you do updates on that?
Yes, I teach the course.
Teach it?
Yes.
So you teach courses in forensic and related areas?
Yes, and in field sobriety tests, blood testing, breath testing.
In what setting do you teach?
For the State Bar of California, I also teach for various criminal defense organizations.
When you say the State Bar of California, would that be that people attend that are defense attorneys and prosecutors
And judges,
and judges?
yes.
And have you been declared an expert in forensic toxicology?
Yes,
And that's in different courts in the United States
correct,
and in Germany and Japan, correct?
correct.
And general technology, toxicology, you've been declared an expert, found to be an expert by a U.S. court?
Yes, general toxicology is usually, it's 50 or so times. That's things that are contaminating the water or poisons and such.
Hair testing you've done?
Correct.
Okay. Pharmacology, you've been declared declared an expert in those fields in U.S. courts?
Correct.
And the issue of impairment by drugs or alcohol, have you been declared a expert regarding toxicology of that?
Correct. Drugs, alcohol, or alcohol and drug interactions.
And you've given expert testimony in the case of Derek Rose.
Yes, MBA.
Who is that? Derek? I'm not a sports person. Who's Derek Rose?
He was the former NBA MVP.
And did you give ever any testimony as an expert in the George Floyd case?
No, I was a consultant on the case. The civil case, which I was working on, settled prior to the trial or testimony.
And as a consultant, were you asked for your expert testimony or expert advice?
Yes, and I relayed to the attorney what the attorney needed to know.
And then the last case is, it deals, it's captioned Hawaii versus Denise Dixie Villa, V-I-L-L-A. What was that case?
That was a baby manslaughter case involving Benadryl.
And were you qualified as an expert for the court there?
Yes.
I'm looking at your curriculum vitae, fancy word for resume, and it says you're testified in over 850 jury trials. Is that correct?
Correct.
In 55 different California counties,
Yes.
24 United States federal courts.
I think he said all that.
Did you say 24 U.S. courts?
I think he said 25, but 25 other states.
Thank you, Judge. And you received a Master of Science in Pharmaceutical Science, specializing in forensic science from the University of Florida in 2012.
Correct.
I would like to have my witness as an expert.
Judge, can we bond here with you?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Mr. Okorocha?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry if I get that wrong. You said you have a bachelor's in biology.
Correct.
Where did you obtain that degree?
California State, Northridge,
When would that have been?
99.
And so after you graduated in 1999, did you go right to graduate school
I went to law school, if that.
immediately? When did you start law school?
Yes, it was the fall following graduation.
So that would have been 1999.
Yes.
And when did you graduate law school?
2002.
When did you go to get your master's?
2010.
What did you do from 2002 to 2010?
I worked for the federal government U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as a civil rights investigator, and then I worked as an attorney.
You worked as an attorney? You worked as a defense attorney?
Yes, for 3 of the 22 years I've been licensed.
Specializing in drunk driving cases, I assume?
For the 3 of the 22 years, I focused on that.
Where was that law school located?
It was in Costa Mesa, California, Orange County.
And where did you go to get your master's?
University of Florida.
So undergrad and law school in California, master's is in Florida?
Yes.
How long did you live in Florida?
I didn't live in Florida. You can do a lot of the work remotely. You take the exams and certain classes in person.
So you got your degree from an online university?
I wouldn't call it online because you're mostly doing research, but yes, it's remote.
Were you in class in person?
Yes, for some of the classes.
For all of the classes?
No.
Okay. How did you do labs from California to Florida?
Sorry?
How did you do your lab requirements? How did you meet lab requirements if you were living in California and your classes were in Florida?
The forensic toxicological analysis is not lab technician work. It's the analysis of the data. The laboratory technician work is simply filling up vials, putting them in a carousel, and pressing a button.
Something tells me most chemists would object to that assessment, but I'll move on. The undergrad, how much lab work did you get?
General chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, microbiology, plant biology. There's more. I'm just not.
Do you work in a lab now?
I work for a lab. I'm not a technician, so I don't fill up the vials, but I analyze the data for a laboratory.
What lab do you work for?
AK&A Labs.
Is that does that lab comply with the International Organization of Standards regulations?
I'm not in charge of compliance. A lot of what I do is also reviewing things from other labs for our lab, but I don't know.
Have you ever tested blood on a gas chromatograph?
I've tested over 10,000 samples.
When did you do this?
I've worked for various labs since 2000, from 2011 up until COVID.
Do you conduct testing still?
Only if I'm covering for somebody. I'm not a technician.
Are you a certified forensic alcohol analyst?
I'm not sure what that is.
Take that as a no. Your most recent professional experience then would be from prior to COVID?
Well, my lab technician work would be prior to COVID. My most recent professional experience would be this week.
Are you a licensed toxicologist?
There are no licenses for toxicologists, at least that I'm aware of.
Is your lab that you work with accredited by anyone?
I don't know the accreditation process. We have labs we send things out to that are accredited for other things. I'm not sure what the labs are accredited for.
What did you review in preparation for today?
That's really more cross than it is voir dire.
Okay, I'll move on.
Hang on a second.
Have you ever testified in the state of Michigan before?
No.
What protocols govern blood collection and testing in Michigan?
I did not review the blood protocols. I reviewed the analytical chemistry data.
So you don't know what rules or policies are used and implemented in this state. Do you know who implements these policies?
No, the policies aren't relevant to what I'm analyzing.
All right. And Judge, the people object. I don't think he's qualified to testify in the state of Michigan. He doesn't even know what governs collection or testing of blood.
All right, well, the court does determine that this witness has been qualified as an expert witness over 700 times in 25 different states, in Japan and in Germany. Has a significant education, also has a significant practical experience. Accordingly, the court does qualify this witness as an expert in forensic toxicology.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you.